Yes, please.
I'm from Zimbabwe. I think you can all hear me without this. My question actually is directed at the reinsurance structure. How is the global or international market, in particular the reinsurers, responding to the Takaful structure of insurance? Are reinsurers now accepting the current structures, or do we have a pool of Takaful reinsurers who are supporting those who are complying with the Takaful insurance?
Thanks. Thank you very much. I mean, Chakib already said it. It's about a dozen operators who offer Retakaful, and to some extent the response of the Takaful operators is not as much as the response of the reinsurers to the Takaful demand. That has several reasons, and I don't want to condemn this, but we have a number of global players in. We have a lot of Windows operations or specialized products, also in the African market, as far as I know. So I think theoretically, of course, the capacity would be sufficient for all the Takaful operators. I'm absolutely sure. The point is, of course, the systems are not yet so far standardized, and to some extent, of course, the choice of the operators is also limited if they go only to Retakaful offers.
Yeah, sure. Chakib would like to make a comment.
I would like to add a comment on the pooling aspect. In fact, historically, at least in the Far East, there was a pool, which was, the ASEAN Takaful Group pool. At that time, it was before the year 2005, because we had this lack of capacity. Nowadays, we don't have this problem, especially for the treaty capacity. We have enough players, and even for the life business, I think we have a huge corporation offering family Takaful or life. There was also, there is always a question on the retrocession, at least in our time. For the time being, we don't have a retro capacity on the international market, and at the end of the chain, we have to go to the international market. Unfortunately, the whole chain is not yet Sharia compliant. Now, there was also a project initiated by the Global Takaful Group and some of the operators. We wanted to start a Lloyd syndicate in London. Unfortunately, we failed, to initiate this project for two reasons. The first reason, we as a Retakaful operator, we were not keen, or we were not really interested, to create a competitor to us, especially benefiting, from the rating of the London market. This was a valid reason. And the other reason, in fact, is the funding, because we were looking for the Islamic Development Bank, to provide 50% of the capital. And the response was, I will not say it was negative, it was very slow. But definitely, there is a need, for more cooperation. What I can say, at least among the existing Takaful operator and among the existing Retakaful, there is a real cooperation. We cooperate in many aspects, let's say, on the regulation, on discussion, with the AWIFI, with the IFSB, etc. We have this cooperation, but we don't have pool. And maybe the experience of the existing pool, like, some Arab pools, was not encouraging. Thank you.
Yes, please.
I would like to ask this from Mr. Ajmal. Basically, as we see, there are Sharia-based company and Sharia-compliant. Okay, can you just in short, in brief, will you define the difference between Sharia-based and Sharia-compliance to all our audience here? That will be good.
There's no such thing as Sharia-based and Sharia-compliant companies. There is Sharia-compliant business that we are running, which is Takaful, and to what extent they follow what is supposed to be compliant. If they forget and don't really do all the things that they need to do in order, because it's not just about the product to be approved as a compliant product, and then the rest is forgotten, and the Sharia scholar is invited only once a year, perhaps, to sign off on something, then that is not Sharia compliant really. But if they were to be doing that, then that would be a Sharia-based approach, so that they actually follow through from first point, which is supposed to be Sharia-compliant product, Sharia-compliant systems, Sharia-compliant investments. Then what happens during the year, it has sort of seen to be exactly that. And that can only happen if everyone in the company, right from the point of sales to the point of delivering the promise to the customer, has to be compliant. That is Sharia-based, in my view.
So it has to be Sharia compliant. So it is the oral approach which applies rather than maybe from based and compliant. Were you referring to the Takaful company or a Takaful window, that kind of a thing?
There are companies like, they have opened their window, conventional companies, they have come like HSBC, they have Standard Chartered, they have, and likewise also in insurance sectors. They came because considering the fact that there is a demand in the region, and then they are playing that role. So in general perception, that's what we started with this debate, that people they have, that is just a change, and a change of nomenclature, which we clarified today is not that, it's more than that. I'm happy with that. But one thing, another question is, as Sharia boards, they don't have a sort of unified regulations. Every Sharia board or every Sharia scholars, they differ somewhere. There is a thin line, in certain areas. If you agree with me, because I come from that background, and I have seen with Islamic banking, for instance, as well, that the same product from one of the banks, which is Islamic bank, and we go, let's say we are talking about Moderator, and if we go and talk about the same contracts with the other Islamic bank, and they go back to their own Sharia board, which differs one after other. So is it also something in your particular area as well?
I guess Sharia is Sharia, so the scholars would refer to the relevant section. Implementation, interpretation relating to the products could be different as per their strategy. So that is where, that is how I would like to answer your question. Irshied, if you'd like to throw more light on this.
Well, I mean, in terms of having a Sharia board, are we talking about the competency of the Sharia or the difference between?
Basically, it's they say the Sharia board, product to product, they've seen the difference. So is it because the interpretation of Sharia or the reference, and there are differences between their own approaches, is wide? How do you see that?
Well, I mean, I go back to what I was talking about earlier. I mean, there had to be an intervention from the regulator, and I think that there had been, from legislative point of view, there has been a legislation that actually regulate here in UAE. Sorry.
Answer,
yeah, go ahead.
Would be good for you as well. For instance, some time back, aviation was not allowed in Takaful, and which the few scholars from Sharia, they said that because alcohol are served, unless you give a written agreement to the Sharia board that in your particular flight you are not going to serve alcohol, then we can comply, then, and then we can finance. For instance, I'm talking about banking in terms of Islamic. And then the same product which went through other Islamic bank, they have approved, and the board, they had a different vision altogether, and they came up with, without giving any names here. So this is what I wanted, like, how come, like, one Sharia board takes it differently, and the other Sharia board, justify that same thing, But with of course, with provisions again in that, and there are conditions again in that. That's what.
I mean, the question I think should be then really, do we have enough corporate governance rules and regulation that actually need to be in place for the overall Takaful industry? And the answer is that, you know, we're getting there. I mean, we are evolving into that aspect.
True, yeah, that is one way of looking at it, that it has to be unified and the governance should have a criteria. Maybe Mr. Bhatty has another point. Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to mention that right now, Islamic Financial Services Board, IFSB, they are actually working on setting standards for risk management on Takaful. And some of these issues are also being discussed there. So hopefully we'll see a standard coming out maybe in a year's time. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing is that there are differences, of course, in the models themselves. But if you're talking about, you gave an example that aviation was one where one board didn't sort of allow. I can't really see why there was an issue there. A plane is a plane, and financing. Okay, I mean financing has to be. There is of course differences of opinion here. Whether you know even if you're insuring a factory which is making maybe a brewery factory, for example, you cannot really insure a brewery factory, but can you actually insure the lives of the people who are working in that place? That is a question. It's nothing to do with the brewery, it's to do with people. People are there, people are people. They could be Muslims, they could be non-Muslims. But if you are providing a cover, which is the Takaful cover, so these kinds of issues are there. Some people, Sharia scholars, refuse it. Some say it's okay. But this is part of, you know, the evolution of the industry itself as we go through that. You wanted to? Yeah.
Well, actually, when we talk about Sharia and the practice, it depends on the people when they go to the Sharia board and explain to them what do they need. Okay, if you explain it in the right way, they will do it. Okay, when you mentioned just now, it used to be aviation. Okay. Today, aviation, maybe they're not good. Why? Okay, I remember that in old days, they said you cannot insure cigarettes. Okay, but you can insure the rest of the contents in the ship. Okay, it depends how you express it, how you explain it, how you tell it to your Sharia board. Okay, this is what we want, this is. Number two, if you look to the age, especially in the GCC, I wouldn't say in the Middle East, in GCC, the age of the Takaful, still young. Okay, people, yes, as I mentioned, Chakib, most, if it's not all, of the people they shifted from conventional to Takaful. This is their school. It was conventional and they moved. Have they been trained well? I doubt. Is there an experienced Sharia board members when they became and heading the Sharia board members, they were practicing insurance? The answer, absolutely no. So it's getting there, but it would take time. Okay, thank you.
I would add to that. I mean, I had one time a challenge back in 2003, 2004, where, I mean, the biggest challenge is to talk to Sharia board in terms of trying to convince them to accept options as a fund for a product. And I yield back to my colleague here is pretty much is how you structure it, how you explain it.